5 words, 11 seconds. Say them before your hand touches that phone and you decide who speaks to you first today. Skip them, and a stranger you've never met, an engineer, an advertiser, an algorithm trained to keep you scrolling, makes that decision for you instead. Most people lose this fight every single morning without ever realizing there was one to win.
Picture the 4 seconds right after you wake up, eyes still closed, mind still quiet, before the first worry remembers itself, before your hand even knows where the phone is lying. That version of you is the only territory you fully own, untouched by headlines, unaware of how many notifications piled up while you slept. In most lives, it lasts exactly as long as a hand to find a screen in the dark. There are 5 words that can stretch those 4 seconds into the whole morning, not a routine, not an hour you don't have. 5 words built on philosophy that has outlasted empires because it actually works. Epictetus called the only thing a human being truly owns the ruling faculty, the part of you that judges, interprets, and chooses how to respond. Nothing outside it can disturb you unless you let it in first. Your phone is the fastest delivery system for things outside that faculty ever built, and it only works if you grant it entry before you've granted yourself anything at all. This isn't about willpower, and it isn't about quitting your phone. It's about sequence, about who gets to speak to your mind first every single morning before anyone else lines up to bid for your attention. If this is already landing, drop anchor below, because that's exactly what this becomes. Here's all 5. Word 1. I pause first. Epictetus put it plainly. Between an event and your reaction to it, there is a gap. However small, that gap is where freedom lives. A push notification exists specifically to erase that gap, to manufacture urgency where none exists, to convince you a response is needed now, before you've had a single second to check if that's even true. There's a reason this matters most in the first few minutes after waking. Your brain is still partly in a slower, more associative state, more open to suggestion than at almost any other point in the day. Whatever lands in that window doesn't get the scrutiny your fully alert mind would give it later. It just slips in and settles, coloring the hours that follow before you've had any real say. Think about the last time a single message at 6 a.m., a work email, a group chat, a headline you didn't ask for, set the tone for your entire day before you'd even brushed your teeth. That wasn't an emergency, it just arrived first, and your mind, half-formed and unguarded, treated first as most important. Saying, I pause first, rebuilds the gap before you need it. 3 breaths, hands empty, before anything, including your own racing thoughts about the day ahead, pulls you forward. You're not avoiding the day. You're meeting it on a delay you chose, not one an algorithm calculated to keep you scrolling longest. But pausing only buys you time. It does nothing about the lie waiting in word 2. Word 2. I am whole. Here's the part almost nobody says out loud. Nearly everything in your feed runs on the quiet suggestion that you are currently incomplete. Not far enough along, not informed enough, not enough, period. Wholeness doesn't sell engagement, lack does, and lack is the entire business model standing between you and your own attention. Marcus Aurelius wrote that very little is needed for a good life, because it's already within you, in how you think. He wasn't denying real hardship, he governed an empire full of it. He was pointing at something structural. Completeness isn't accumulated like followers or likes, it's obscured by noise, not absent from your life. You know the feeling already. One photo of someone else's vacation, someone else's body, someone else's launch day, and you feel a full lap behind before your feet have even hit the floor. That feeling isn't information, it's a manufactured deficit, engineered to make the next swipe feel necessary. Saying, "I am whole," before the screen lights up refuses to let a feed define your sufficiency for one more morning. You can still want growth. You just stop chasing it to fill a hole that was manufactured for you to feel in the first place. Word 3 is the one people skip fastest, and the one that quietly costs them the most. Word 3, I trust myself. Almost all compulsive checking traces back to the same quiet erosion. You've stopped trusting your own judgment and started outsourcing it to whoever is trending, whoever sounds certain, whoever posted first. Not because their judgment is better, because yours has gone untrained from disuse. Seneca warned his friend Lucilius that while we keep postponing, life speeds by. Underneath that warning sits something simpler. A person who has stopped trusting themselves will always look outward for permission to feel, to want, to decide. The Stoics built an entire philosophy on the claim that a trained, reasoned judgment beats the noise of any crowd every single time. Not because crowds are always wrong, but because outsourcing the decision is itself the failure. Notice how often you read the headline and then, before forming a single thought of your own, scroll straight to the comments to find out what you're supposed to think about it. That habit isn't curiosity, it's a small, repeated vote against your own mind. Saying, "I trust myself" each morning means deciding what your day needs before checking what 100 strangers think their day needs. It doesn't mean refusing outside input forever. It means the first voice you consult, without exception, is your own. Trusting yourself, though, means nothing if you can't put down what was never yours to carry in the first place.
Before you touch your phone, say these 5 words to reclaim your mind. Stoic wisdom. Word 4. I let go. Outrage about something you can't change before breakfast. Anxiety about an outcome that hasn't happened and may never happen. Comparison to a life you only see in carefully chosen fragments. You pick all of it up every morning and carry it through your day like stones in your pockets, stones you never agreed to hold. Epictetus drew the line precisely. Your judgments are yours. Almost everything else, other people's opinions, the news cycle, a stranger's behavior, is not. He taught that suffering comes specifically from confusing the two, from gripping tightly to things that were never within your power to hold. It might be outrage about a decision made by people you'll never meet, in a place you'll never visit, that you can do absolutely nothing about before lunch. You feel it anyway, fully, because the feed handed it to you as if it were yours to fix. Saying, "I let go," is a preemptive release. You decide in advance not to pick up every stone the internet hands you today. You're not becoming indifferent to the world. You're becoming selective about which weight you actually choose to carry. 4 words build the foundation. The 5th is the one that has to hold under real pressure. On the mornings, the other 4 aren't enough on their own. Word 5. I choose calm. This is the word that carries the other 4, because calm was never something the Stoics waited for. It was something they built, deliberately, especially on the mornings chaos arrived first and didn't ask permission. Marcus Aurelius armed armies and governed an empire under constant threat, and still wrote to himself, in private, never for an audience, that the soul takes the color of its own thoughts. He didn't wait for calm conditions to feel calm. He built it from the inside and let it meet whatever showed up from the outside, on the worst days as much as the easy ones. He wrote much of it during a plague that emptied Roman cities and a war that never seemed to end. Not abstract chaos, but the real kind, the kind that makes calm feel like a luxury he couldn't afford. He decided to afford it anyway, daily, by choice, because the alternative was letting circumstance write his mind for him.
Saying, "I choose calm," doesn't deny that today might bring real difficulty. It's a declaration that you'll meet that difficulty from a center you built before it arrived, instead of from whatever scattered reactive state a notification happened to leave you in. Some mornings this will be easy. Other mornings you'll say the words and still feel the pull toward panic. That's fine. The words were never a guarantee of feeling. They're a daily vote for who you're choosing to become, cast before the world has any say in the matter. Type this below if you feel it. Calm is something I build, not something I wait for. 5 words. I pause first. I am whole. I trust myself. I let go. I choose calm. Not a checklist you run through once, a daily act of taking back the one territory that was always yours, your own mind, claimed before the world arrives with its invoice for your attention. None of the men who built this framework owned a phone. Epictetus said it wouldn't have mattered. He lived enslaved with no control over his own body and still insisted his judgments remained entirely his own. Seneca lived one bad mood away from execution under an emperor he couldn't predict, and still wrote calmly about an unshaken mind. Marcus Aurelius held more raw power than almost anyone in history, and spent much of it reminding himself, privately, to stay small enough to not be ruled by his own circumstances. None of them faced a notification. All of them faced something just as capable of hijacking an unguarded mind, with far higher stakes than a buzzing screen. And all 3 insisted, in writings never meant for an audience, that the mind stayed theirs regardless. You're not being asked to abandon your phone forever. You're being asked to decide every single morning, before you touch it, who speaks to you first. Some days the screen will win before your feet hit the floor. That's not the end of the practice. It was never about a perfect streak. It was always about returning, morning after morning, to 5 words waiting before the noise begins. Those 4 seconds you own when you wake up don't have to stay 4 seconds. They last exactly as long as you decide they do. If this resonated, like before you check anything else this morning. Drop the word that hit hardest. Share it with someone who reaches for their phone the second they open their eyes. And subscribe. This is only the beginning of taking your mornings back. Leave this below as your commitment. I speak to my mind before the world does.